On the distant planet of Xylar, the sky turned dark as the sun set behind the mountains. The air was filled with the sounds of battle. Zoran, a brave soldier of the Xylarian army, stood with his squad, ready to fight. They faced a powerful enemy known as the Kralons, a ruthless faction that wanted to conquer their planet. The Kralons had advanced technology, and they outnumbered the Xylarian soldiers. Zoran tightened his grip on his energy weapon, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was a dedicated soldier, but today felt different. The Kralons had launched a surprise attack, and Zoran could see his comrades struggling against the enemy. Explosions echoed in the distance, and the ground shook beneath his feet. The fight was fierce, and Zoran knew they had to hold their ground or risk losing everything. As the battle raged on, Zoran shouted orders to his squad. "Stay together! We can't let them break our lines." His voice was steady, but inside he felt a wave of fear. He glanced to his right and saw his friend, Jara, firing her weapon with fierce determination. She was a skilled soldier, and Zoran admired her bravery. But even her strength was not enough against the overwhelming Kralon forces. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the sky. A Kralon warship descended, its guns firing relentlessly. Zoran ducked behind a rocky outcrop, his heart racing. The ship's laser beams struck nearby, sending debris flying through the air. "We need to take that ship down," he yelled, rallying his squad. They needed to act quickly before it could do more damage. Zoran's squad moved into position, aiming their weapons at the warship. He felt a surge of adrenaline as they fired together, their shots hitting the ship. For a moment, Zoran felt hope. But the Kralons were ready. The warship retaliated, and Zoran watched in horror as one of his squad members fell to the ground, hit by the enemy fire. Panic surged through him, but he pushed it aside. They had to keep fighting. The battle continued, with the Xylarian soldiers doing their best to hold back the Kralons. Zoran fought with all his might, but the situation grew more desperate. They were outnumbered, and it felt like the Kralons would soon overwhelm them. Zoran's mind raced as he tried to think of a way to turn the tide. He glanced around, looking for any sign of help, but all he saw were the faces of his weary comrades. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the darkness closed in around them. Zoran felt a sinking feeling in his chest. "We can't hold out much longer," he thought, despair creeping in. Just then he spotted a small clearing in the distance. It was a safe spot where they could regroup. "Follow me!" he shouted, leading his squad towards the clearing. They needed to find a way to escape and regroup. When they reached the clearing, Zoran activated his communicator. He hoped to contact any nearby allies for help. "This is Zoran of the Xylarian army. We are under attack and need immediate assistance." His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. The only response was static, and he felt his heart sink further. They were truly alone against the Kralons. Zoran's squad looked at him with worry. They trusted him to lead them, but he could feel their fear. Just then, another explosion rocked the ground, sending shockwaves through the clearing. Zoran fell to his knees, realizing that the Kralons were closing in. They had to escape. With a determined look in his eyes, he made a decision. "We will fight to the end," he declared, though doubt lingered in the back of his mind. In that moment of desperation, Zoran decided to send out a last-ditch distress signal. "If anyone is out there, please help us," he cried out. As he transmitted the signal, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe someone would hear him. Maybe help would arrive in time. With the Kralons closing in, Zoran prepared himself for the fight of his life, determined to protect his squad and his planet, even if it seemed hopeless. Back on Earth, a bustling command center buzzed with activity. Soldiers, scientists, and leaders gathered around large screens showing the galaxy map. They had just received a distress signal from Zoran, a Xylarian soldier, and it caught the attention of Captain Sarah, a seasoned leader known for her daring missions. She was a strong and determined woman, and she felt a sense of urgency as she listened to the message. "This is Zoran of the Xylarian army. We are under attack and need immediate assistance." The voice crackled through the speakers, filled with desperation. Captain Sarah exchanged glances with her team. They understood the danger the Xylarian soldiers faced and knew they had to act quickly. "Prepare the rescue team," Sarah ordered, her voice steady and commanding. "We're going to Xylar. We can't leave them to fend for themselves." Her team nodded in agreement, their faces showing determination. They had trained for this moment and were ready to face any challenge. As the team suited up, excitement and nervousness filled the air. Each member had a role to play, and they knew the risks involved. They boarded their ship, a sleek, advanced craft designed for quick insertions into enemy territory. Captain Sarah stood at the helm, her heart racing as they prepared for launch. The ship roared to life and blasted off into the sky. As they soared through the atmosphere, Sarah and her crew reviewed the information they had about the Xylarian conflict. They knew the Krylons were a powerful enemy, but the humans had faced great challenges before. They were trained for this, and they believed they could make a difference. Once they entered hyperspace, Sarah took a moment to gather her thoughts. She knew they were racing against time. "We need to be ready for anything," she told her crew. "The Xylarian soldiers are counting on us." Her words inspired confidence in the team, and they focused on their mission. After what felt like an eternity, the ship dropped out of hyperspace near Xylar. The planet's surface was a mix of lush forests and barren landscapes, but smoke filled the air, indicating the chaos of battle. As they approached, the sight of Kraylan warships made the team's hearts race. The enemy was everywhere. "Steady, everyone," Sarah instructed, keeping her voice calm. "We'll go in low and fast. We need to reach the Xylarian soldiers before it's too late." The crew nodded, adrenaline pumping through their veins. As they landed near the battle zone, the team quickly disembarked, weapons drawn and ready. The sounds of war surrounded them, explosions, shouts, and the cries of soldiers fighting for their lives. Sarah led her team into the fray, her eyes scanning for any sign of Zoran and his squad. Zoran was still in the clearing, preparing for the Kraylons' next attack. Suddenly, he heard the unmistakable sound of engines overhead. He looked up and saw a human ship land nearby. His heart raced with hope and disbelief. Could it be that help had finally arrived? As the humans emerged from their ship, Zoran was amazed by their bravery. They charged into battle with precision, moving together as a well-trained unit. He watched as they engaged the Kraylons, their weapons flashing brightly against the dark sky. Zoran couldn't believe what he was seeing. These humans were not only fearless, but they also fought for him and his people. Sarah and her team quickly assessed the situation. They could see Zoran's squad under heavy fire, and without hesitation, they moved to help. Sarah shouted commands to her team, guiding them in a coordinated attack against the Kraylons. Zoran felt a surge of hope as he watched the humans fight alongside his fellow soldiers. With each passing moment, the tide of battle began to shift. The humans worked seamlessly with Zoran's squad, their strategies blending together. Zoran joined forces with Captain Sarah, and together, they pushed back the enemy. He was astonished by how quickly the humans adapted to the battlefield. As the Kraylons started to retreat, Zoran felt a bond forming with these unexpected heroes. He had come to see them as more than just allies. They were friends fighting for a common cause. The battle was intense, but Zoran knew they were on the path to victory. When the last of the Kraylan forces fled, Zoran turned to Sarah, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you for coming. I didn't think anyone would hear our call," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Sarah smiled, her expression warm and understanding. "We couldn't leave you behind. We are here to help, and together, we will fight for peace." In that moment, Zoran realized that the humans were not just soldiers, they were heroes, and he was proud to stand with them. Their journey had just begun, and he felt a sense of hope that they could overcome any challenge together. As the dust settled from the battle, Zoran and Captain Sarah stood together, strategizing their next move. The Kraylons were not completely gone. They had only retreated temporarily. Zoran felt a sense of urgency. They had to act quickly before the enemy regrouped and returned with more forces. "We need to get the remaining Xylarian soldiers to safety," he said, glancing around at the scattered remnants of his squad. Sarah nodded, her face serious. "You're right. We can't let them stay exposed. Let's move!" She quickly gathered her team, who were still buzzing with adrenaline after the fierce fight. They reloaded their weapons and prepared for another round against the Kraylons. Zoran led the way through the rugged terrain, guiding the humans toward a hidden path he knew. This route would take them to a secure area away from the battlefield, where they could regroup. "Follow me!" he shouted, leading them through the thick brush. The air was tense, but Zoran felt a spark of hope. With the humans by his side, he believed they could protect the remaining soldiers. As they moved deeper into the forest, Zoran noticed something strange. "We're being watched," he whispered, glancing around nervously. Sarah's team also sensed the danger, their eyes scanning the shadows. Suddenly, a group of Kraylon soldiers emerged from the trees, weapons raised. Zoran's heart raced. "Get ready!" he yelled. The Kraylons charged, and the humans responded with determination. Sarah shouted commands to her team, and they quickly formed a defensive line. Zoran joined in, firing his energy weapon alongside the humans. The sounds of battle erupted once more, and the forest echoed with laser blasts. Despite their best efforts, the Kraylons were relentless. They pushed forward, trying to break through the humans' defense. Zoran felt the pressure mounting as he fought to protect his friends. He couldn't let the Kraylons capture them. They had come too far. "Keep fighting!" Sarah shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. Zoran felt inspired by her strength. Together they held their ground, pushing back the Kraylons with every ounce of energy they had. But just when it seemed they might win, a massive Kraylon warship appeared above them, blocking out the sun. The ship hovered ominously, and Zoran's heart sank. "We have to get out of here now," he urged. Sarah quickly assessed their options. "We can't fight them here. We need to move." With that, they broke away from the battle, retreating down the path Zoran had shown them. They sprinted through the forest, dodging branches and leaping over obstacles. The sound of the Kraylon ship's engines roared above, and Zoran felt the heat of their lasers singe the ground behind them. "Go, go, go!" Sarah yelled, pushing her team forward. Zoran glanced back, and his heart raced when he saw the ship firing on their position. He couldn't let fear stop him. He urged everyone to run faster, leading them toward the clearing where the remaining Xylarian soldiers had taken shelter. Finally, they reached the clearing, but it was not safe yet. The remaining Xylarian soldiers looked weary and scared, their faces showing the toll of the battle. Zoran quickly shouted to them, "We have to move! The Kraylons are coming!" As he gathered his friends, Sarah took charge. "We'll create a perimeter," she instructed her team. "Cover the exits and protect the Xylarian soldiers." Zoran watched as the humans sprang into action, their movements precise and coordinated. He felt a swell of admiration for these brave warriors who had come to his planet's aid. With everyone in position, Zoran and Sarah prepared for the Kraylons' inevitable attack. The Kraylon ship descended and soldiers began to pour out. "They're here!" Zoran shouted, adrenaline pumping through him. The battle began anew, but this time they were ready. Zoran fought alongside Sarah, their weapons flashing in the dim light. He felt a surge of confidence knowing that they were united in this fight. As the Kraylons pushed forward, Zoran and the humans held their ground, determined to protect their home. Finally, with one last push, the team managed to repel the Kraylon forces. The Kraylons retreated, their ship leaving the area as they realized they could not win against this united front. Zoran looked around at his comrades, both human and Xylarian, and felt a deep sense of pride. "We did it!" he shouted, exhilaration washing over him. Sarah smiled, breathing heavily but looking triumphant. "We are just getting started. Together we can face anything." In that moment, Zoran knew that he had found allies, friends who would stand by him in the darkest times. Their daring rescue mission had turned into a powerful bond, and together they were ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. In the aftermath of the battle, Zoran and Captain Sarah gathered the remaining Xylarian soldiers in a clearing deep in the forest. The air was thick with tension, but there was also hope. They had survived the Kraylon attack together, and now they needed to plan their next steps. As the group settled down, Zoran stood in front of them, feeling a mixture of pride and responsibility. "We must learn from this," he began, looking around at the faces of his comrades. "The Kraylons will not give up. We need to be ready." The Xylarian soldiers nodded, their expressions serious. Sarah stepped forward, her presence commanding. "We can help each other," she said. "Humans have experience in warfare, and we can share our tactics with you." The Xylarian soldiers looked intrigued. They had heard stories about the bravery of humans, but seeing it firsthand changed their perspective. Zoran knew this was a chance for growth. "Let's work together to strengthen our skills," he suggested. "We can train and prepare for the next battle." The humans smiled, eager to share their knowledge. They believed in teamwork and were excited to build a stronger alliance with the Xylarian soldiers. Over the next few days, they set up a training camp. Captain Sarah organized drills, focusing on combat techniques and teamwork. She emphasized the importance of communication. We must always watch each other's backs, she explained. In battle, we are stronger together. The Xylarian soldiers listened intently, taking notes and practicing what they learned. Zoran paired up with Sarah for the first training session. He was eager to learn, but also nervous. I hope I can keep up with you, he admitted. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. You'll do great, Zoran. Just trust yourself. As they practiced, Zoran found himself inspired by Sarah's confidence and skill. She moved gracefully, demonstrating tactics with precision. He mimicked her movements, feeling his own abilities improve with each repetition. You're a fast learner, Sarah praised him. Zoran felt a swell of pride. He was starting to understand the humans' ways. In the afternoons, the humans taught the Xylarian soldiers about their technology. They showed them advanced weapons and communication devices, explaining how to use them effectively. The Xylarian soldiers were amazed by the human inventions. Your tools are incredible, one soldier exclaimed, examining a laser rifle closely. We need to incorporate this technology into our arsenal. The exchange of knowledge was mutual. The Xylarian soldiers shared their unique combat techniques, which focused on agility and quick strikes. The humans were eager to learn, recognizing the value in these methods. We can blend our styles, Sarah suggested. Your agility combined with our firepower could make us unbeatable. As the days passed, they became more than just allies. They grew into a tight-knit community. They shared meals, laughed together, and learned about each other's cultures. Zoran was fascinated by human stories, especially those of bravery and sacrifice. He often found himself sitting around the campfire, listening to Sarah recount tales of heroic deeds. One night, as they gathered under the stars, Zoran decided to share a story of his own. In my culture, we have a saying, the heart of a warrior is not measured by strength, but by the courage to stand for others. The humans listened intently, appreciating the wisdom in his words. Sarah nodded, a smile on her face. That's beautiful, Zoran. It perfectly describes what we are doing here. We fight not just for ourselves, but for each other. Their bond deepened with each passing day. They practiced hard, and soon they became a formidable force. They trained together until exhaustion set in, but the shared goal of preparing for the Kralans kept their spirits high. One afternoon, as they were wrapping up a training session, Zoran noticed a group of Xylarian soldiers struggling with a new technique. He walked over to help them. You can do this, he encouraged them, demonstrating the move step by step. His patience and guidance paid off, and soon they were executing the technique flawlessly. Zoran felt a surge of pride watching his comrades succeed. They were not just learning, they were growing stronger together. With the humans' help, he realized that they could overcome any challenge. As the sun set on another training day, Zoran and Sarah shared a moment of reflection. We've come a long way, Sarah said, her eyes shining with pride. Zoran nodded, feeling grateful for the bond they had forged. They were no longer just soldiers from different worlds. They were friends united in purpose. With their training complete, they prepared for the next chapter of their journey, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would stand strong against the Kralans, a true testament to the power of teamwork and friendship. The day had finally come. Zoran, Captain Sarah, and their combined team of Xylarian and human soldiers stood ready in the clearing, their hearts pounding with anticipation. After weeks of training together, they had developed a strong bond, but now they faced a true test. The Kralans were rumored to be returning, and they had to defend their home. As the sun rose, casting a warm glow over the forest, Zoran felt a sense of determination. He glanced at Sarah, who was busy inspecting the soldiers' equipment. Her focus and confidence inspired him. We can do this, he thought. Together, we are unstoppable. Sarah noticed Zoran's gaze and smiled reassuringly. Are you ready, Zoran? She asked, her voice steady. Today is our day to show the Kralans what we're made of. I'm ready, Zoran replied, feeling a rush of excitement. With our teamwork, we will win. He turned to the soldiers gathered around them, their faces reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Listen up, everyone! We have trained hard for this moment. We are not just fighting for ourselves, but for each other and our homes. Let's show the Kralans what we can do. The soldiers cheered, their spirits lifted. They lined up in formation, weapons at the ready. Zoran and Sarah took their positions at the front, where they could see the approaching threat. The forest fell silent as they waited, their hearts beating in unison. Suddenly, dark shapes appeared on the horizon. The Krylon warship descended from the sky, casting a shadow over the clearing. Zoran felt a chill run down his spine, but he quickly pushed the fear aside. He looked at Sarah, who nodded, her expression fierce and determined. "Get ready!" she shouted, raising her weapon. The soldiers readied themselves, fingers on triggers, eyes fixed on the approaching enemy. As the Krylons landed, they poured out of their ship, their menacing forms advancing towards the clearing. Zoran could see their fierce eyes and sharp weapons, and he felt a surge of adrenaline. He raised his weapon, ready to defend his friends. The battle began. Laser blasts filled the air as both sides clashed. Zoran fought alongside Sarah, their movements synchronized. They had trained hard, and now it was time to put their skills to the test. Zoran's heart raced as he fired at the Krylons, feeling a sense of purpose. "Keep moving!" Sarah shouted, leading the charge. Zoran followed closely, dodging and weaving through the chaos. He could see the Xylarian soldiers fighting bravely beside their human allies. They were no longer just Xylarian soldiers, they had become a unified team. As the battle raged on, Zoran noticed a group of Krylons trying to flank them. "We need to stop them!" he yelled to Sarah. She nodded, her eyes fierce with determination. "Let's go!" Together, they raced toward the flank, working as one to intercept the enemy. With a series of well-coordinated moves, they fought off the Krylons, pushing them back and protecting their allies. Zoran felt a sense of exhilaration as he fought side by side with Sarah and their friends. They were not just fighting for victory, they were fighting for each other. As the battle wore on, it became clear that their training had paid off. The combined forces of humans and Xylarian soldiers worked in harmony, effectively countering the Krylon attacks. Zoran felt pride swell in his chest as he looked around at his friends, united in purpose. Finally, after what felt like hours, the tide began to turn. The Krylons, realizing they were outmatched, started to retreat. Zoran and Sarah exchanged triumphant smiles, knowing they had won this battle together. As the last of the Krylons fled, the clearing erupted in cheers. Zoran felt overwhelmed with joy and gratitude for his newfound friends. They had faced danger together and emerged victorious. "We did it!" Zoran shouted, raising his weapon in celebration. The soldiers cheered, their spirits lifted by the victory. Sarah stepped forward, her expression proud. "We showed them that we are stronger together." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the forest, Zoran took a moment to reflect. He had come a long way from the fearful soldier he once was. Now, he stood with brave friends who had become family. In that moment, Zoran understood the true meaning of friendship. It was not just about fighting side by side, it was about supporting one another, sharing knowledge, and learning from each other. The bond they had formed was unbreakable. As they gathered to celebrate their victory, Zoran and Sarah exchanged a meaningful glance. They knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together. They had faced the Krylons and emerged victorious, but many challenges still lay ahead. Together, they would continue to grow stronger, united in their quest for peace and friendship. With their spirits high, Zoran and his friends prepared for whatever came next. Together, they would stand firm against any threat, their friendship and teamwork guiding them through the darkness. The future looked bright, and they were ready to face it. Together.